Hello, this is Amanda Grover from Goodwill Industries of West Michigan. I am the Career Supports Manager here at Goodwill. I've been volunteering with the VITA program for going on 6 years now, and this is an introduction video to teach you a little bit about our program that we have here for VITA Services for West Michigan. This will give you a little bit of background about the program that we have established, as well as let you know some of the processes that are in place to become a VITA volunteer. Carl Lewis will also be working on some of these videos, so you'll hear from him. Carl is our tax program coordinator and can be contacted if you have any questions about any volunteering commitments, any of the training. And there's a lot of reasons why we want to make sure that the city. One, we want to make sure that families are keeping the tax preparation costs in their pocket. So a lot of the time families are paying upwards of $100, $200, $250 to have their taxes prepared, and we want to make sure that they're getting a quality service and that they're keeping that hard-earned money in their pockets. We'd rather see our low and moderate income families being able to save for asset building items such as paying for education or paying to have their cars fixed, making sure that they can get to work, to make sure that they can keep that money in their pocket, and then also make sure that their taxes are prepared properly for them. The IRS estimates that about 1 in 5 people who have their taxes done are leaving the earned income tax credit on the table, and there's often many times where people are leaving some other really great resources, other tax credits on the table that they're actually in fact eligible for. The Earned Income Tax Credit is the most effective anti-poverty tool, lifting over 6 million people out of poverty each year, and we just want to make sure that we're utilizing the taxes as a good opportunity for people to get the things that they need for their household, to get items fixed, to help them catch up on bills. So this is a great program that helps to do that. We do taxes at various locations in the community. Right now we're servicing Muskegon, Oceana, Newaygo, and Ottawa counties. The tax sites themselves vary. This is an example of what the schedule will look like. On our volunteer training page as well as our community page through our goodwillwm.org website, you'll find all this information. It's all over all of our marketing materials as well. 211 is a great community partner and can also provide some information on where we'll be, and they will be setting up the appointments for people to come in and have their taxes prepared. So some of the really good opportunities that come up and that are part of being a VITA volunteer is you're really helping a family in need. This program helps have a community impact of over $3 million, which is pretty amazing. So to be able to go to a volunteer opportunity and lend a little bit of time and change people's lives by thousands of dollars so that they can stay in their home and get caught up on rent and other items, it can be a pretty powerful thing that just feels really good. It's also a good opportunity. We use our VITA tax sites as opportunities to connect families and people with other great community services. Our program, like I said, has that community impact of over $3 million, so that's not only helping get people caught up on items, but it's also stimulating our local economy. The opportunity to volunteer can just be a great way to meet other people. Having the different people come into the tax sites every day, there's literally dozens of people coming through the tax site, so it's a really great opportunity to meet different types of people, just have some casual conversation. It's really interesting what experiences other people have had, so the volunteers and the clients are always very interesting to interact with. You can utilize the volunteer hours for school or for any sort of professional requirements. So sometimes people are required to accumulate continuing education credits. We can definitely accommodate any sort of paperwork or anything you need for that. People have utilized this for internships that they're doing, and for other requirements for volunteering. So you only have to be 16 to volunteer for this program. 16 and up, anyone can volunteer. You just have to pass a brief background check, and then we'll make sure that you can go ahead and volunteer, and we'll get you certified with the IRS and teach you how to do the taxes, all for free. It's a great way to have some professional development skills. So a lot of the time people have had backgrounds in accounting, but if that's something that you may be interested in or someone you know may be interested in, it's a really great way to develop a skill, especially a skill like taxes that once you learn this knowledge, a lot of the time it'll serve you in a lot of different things you do throughout your life. With taxes, for the most part, the federal tax law doesn't change a whole lot. You have to stay on top of the tax law, but once you learn the process, you only start developing and building upon your previous knowledge base. So it's a really great way to develop a new skill and learn something new. And believe it or not, it's actually can be quite a bit of fun. So we have a lot of fun at our tax sites. So our tax sites, basically what it consists of is we have volunteers at the tax sites. We certify them and help them get certified to do taxes. So if you're considering volunteering, we have a lot of different ways for you to learn how to do the taxes and what our standards are. At the tax sites, it's really helpful if it's a larger site that we have tax greeters. So we always need people helping us to greet. And then at the tax sites, there will be tax preparers as well as a site coordinator. The site coordinator a lot of the time does taxes, but is typically a person who has been with the program for a longer amount of time, has some knowledge about the software, about tax law, and has worked with the program to know some of the troubleshooting issues that need to happen. So the site coordinator, like I said, oftentimes does tax returns themselves. It's ideal if they don't, and so that they're just available for questions, but a lot of the time you end up jumping in and doing a return. So it's a pretty fun time that we have there. So that's at the tax site and provides tax site coverage. We also have a lot of different community partners behind the scenes doing some of the grant administration. I also want to mention that 211 again does all of the appointment scheduling, and we'll go through that process a little bit later in this presentation. So I've indicated that there's a required certification path. And because this is a program that's certified and overseen by the IRS, we have to follow their compliance with grants as well as just program compliance. So the IRS does require that a person becomes what they call VITA certified. The IRS has their own training page. It's www.linklearncertification.com. It is a pretty good website. That's where you're able to access any of the testing and certification links. There's some training links for their training program as well. So they have some modules similar to this. However, they're a little bit longer and they're not moderated. So that's actually why we did this format of learning for people. We just thought we would be a little more accommodating. We know it's hard for people to get to classroom sessions, so we wanted to put this information online, consolidate a little bit of what the IRS has from their website, as well as moderate it and go through some of the things that we really want to emphasize to our new and returning volunteers. The volunteer standards of conduct you see in the certification path is required of any person that volunteers with the VITA program in general. So the volunteer standards of conduct is a requirement for our greeters as well as our tax preparers. There's also the screening and interviewing, and that's a requirement as well, and that basically can teach you how to use our intake and interview form at the tax site, and also teaches you kind of how to ask some probing questions to make sure that one, a person is eligible for the service, and two, that they are that they have all the proper documentation with them as well. So those are two of the really key pieces to get started for the volunteering, and those two are required of greeters. Now, if you're going to be a tax preparer, you can certify either to an advanced level or a basic level. I want to say first that we are encouraging all of our volunteers to certify to this advanced level, and that we want to make sure that people are able to be matched up with their proper tax preparer. So to go over that again, there's two different levels. There's the basic and the advanced. With the basic level, it's really only 4 less type of income sources typically that we see at a tax site. So it might take an hour more of training to become advanced certified, but just know that you can only do tax returns that fall into the category of the level that you certify at. I'm going to talk a little bit about some resource guides, but it'll show you a chart of the income sources that you can work with. And if you're basic certified and if somebody comes in with a specific type of income source that is not covered under the basic level of a tax return, you can't do that tax preparation. So there may be a site full of people, but they may have tax returns that you can't work on. And in that case, if you're a volunteer and you come in, you're not able to really help people like you want to, and it's kind of a waste of your time because you'll be sitting there without anything to do and there will be tax returns that need to be done. So we encourage everybody just to go ahead and certify at the advanced level. It will basically just make you most prepared that you can be to be at the tax site and feel comfortable with the tax returns that you're going to see. So it's advantageous for you as a volunteer as well as the people that you're helping in our community. There's some optional certification pathways. So there's health savings accounts that we're starting to see more and more, and that's a separate piece of certification. And again, that's available on the linklearncertification.com website. A cancellation of debt has actually been rolled into the advanced certification, so that's good. We'll go through that in the income section. There's a foreign certification for anybody that lives out of the country. Military is one that we are encouraging people to get certified to, especially if you have any family members or friends in the service and you can utilize doing a tax return for somebody that's in active duty. It's a really great service that we're able to offer, and we do have some volunteers that certified in military that if you have any questions, we can definitely get you connected with them so that you can learn the proper way to do a tax return for somebody that's in service as well. There's the additional certifications for Puerto Rico and international returns as well that are listed on that IRS Link Learn certification page. So I want to talk a little bit about the tax sites themselves, what it looks like, how it operates, how it looks for clients, and then how it looks for volunteers as well. So a tax site can be at one of our community partners. We like to have it set up so that the site has an area for greeting people to let them come in. There's some of that intake and interview form that I had mentioned. That intake and interview form needs to be filled out, and you need to check and make sure that the client has all the proper documentation and that they're there at the correct appointment time. So for our tax sites, they all operate on a schedule. 211 does our appointment scheduling for us. They are so great, and they go through and they first make sure that somebody is eligible for the service. To be eligible for the service, the client just has to earn under $60,000 a year, and they have to live in the county that that we're serving, or if they live in any four of the counties, they can go to any of the locations. But we want to make sure that we're covering the financial requirement as well as that geographic requirement. Aside from that, we just have to make sure that it's a tax return that's simple enough and that we've been trained on. So a few of the things that are kind of common that we can't assist with are rental income. If there's a cancellation of debt that's over $10,000, we can't really look at those returns. There's certain income sources that we can't do, but for the most part, we can assist most people because most tax returns are pretty basic. We work a lot with Social Security, with capital gains, Schedule C's, W-2 income, obviously, some general earning. But 211 does all of our appointment screening for us, and there's some really good information in some of the upcoming trainings as well that can identify a little bit about the eligibility and requirements of the clients that we're serving in our community. So the client comes in, they've seen our marketing material out, they know to call 211. Call 211, we'll go through and set up an appointment for them, either based on time or location, whatever the person requests. We'll get them in for the tax appointment. They'll come to the tax site, and then either the greeter or a tax preparer will come up and greet the client to make sure that they're there at the right time and that they have all the required documents and that their intake and interview form is filled out. So that's the second step. The third step is that the taxpayer comes in and meets with the tax preparer, and they go through the tax return. The tax preparer will often confirm information that's on that intake and interview form, just making sure that we have all the proper information and that we're going ahead and preparing the tax return correctly. The last step is that after the tax prepares the return, they have another volunteer go through and look at their return to make sure that it's complete and accurate. So it's really a great way to make sure that all of our returns are done efficiently and properly. The software works really well at catching any sort of mistakes, but this is just another way to catch any mistakes, and we surprisingly don't have very many mistakes at our tax sites because of the system that's created. So after the tax return has been gone through by the site coordinator, another volunteer to do that quality review, use the tax preparer. We'll go ahead and print out the return and give a copy to the client, mark the return as complete in the electronic software, and your site coordinator will go ahead and e-file it that night at the end of that volunteer shift. And then after that, you just move on to the next client. The client that is leaving that has had their taxes prepared can check online and confirm that if the IRS has received their tax return or if the state has within 72 hours. But at that point, you as a volunteer, you're done. So you may have a question about clients that can't get a tax appointment because there is an extremely high demand for this service, which is why we need all the volunteers we can get. But when we are completely booked up for appointments, we're encouraging people to utilize a free self-service site. It's called myfreetaxes.com. Again, it's a free site for anybody that earns less than $60,000. So just like our program, if you earn under that income limit, then you can go ahead and prepare your taxes for free. Now the website is very user-friendly. It uses an interview method to go ahead and ask questions, and basically you input information directly from your tax forms that you have. It's really nice because if a person wants to utilize the service, they can do it from home in their pajamas. We also do have sites or computers available at the tax sites so that if there's somebody that doesn't have a computer at home, they can go ahead and come on in and utilize the myfreetaxes.com. My Free Taxes also has a very helpful customer service link that can help answer any of the questions that somebody has in doing their tax preparation. So that way it kind of eases some of that anxiety about maybe doing the tax preparation at home. We like to kind of cover what a greeter does for everybody during this just intro video to make sure that everybody understands that it's really helpful for us to have greeters. And even if you're a tax preparer at the tax site, you may have to step in to do greeting every now and then. So we do have the greeters at the tax site like I had indicated previously. They go ahead and they help with the screening and interviewing. So again, just kind of confirming what call 211 did, that the client is eligible. When 211 provides a client their appointment time, they also provide them a list of information that they'll need to bring with them to the tax appointment. So part of what the greeter does is confirm that the taxpayers brought in all that information and all the forms we need in order to prepare their return accurately. As a greeter, you'll not only help people fill out information on that intake and interview form and answer questions and make sure that people are there for the correct appointment at the correct time, but it's never slow. So we'll always need people helping with that piece and also helping us to make appointment reminder calls. In order to be a greeter, somebody has to pass the VITA volunteer standards of conduct as well as the screening and interviewing. I'd say an estimate for training time, and this is pretty liberal, is it takes at most 3 hours, and that includes doing the online volunteer standards of conduct as well as that intake and interview training, that screening and interview training. And that too, the 3 hours includes some time you spend at the site, just kind of getting familiar with it, where everything is located, just in terms of the forms that you'll need to get out, where you put forms, where pens are, making sure you know where the bathroom is in case people need to know. So just a little bit of time to get acquainted with the tax site that you're volunteering at, as well as it's included in that 3 hour span of time. As a tax preparer, now, this is really interesting. Like I said, you'll have to go through and do the certification that's based on IRS standards. But we also have this in place because we want to make sure that you as a volunteer feel really comfortable with what you're doing and have a really good understanding of doing taxes as well. So as a preparer, you can see all the different training and different types of income that we'll be going through during this training and that you'll learn how to do and work with. You have to have that VITA volunteer standards of conduct and interview training. And like I said, we're encouraging people to certify to that advanced level. We will accept if you do a basic level certification, but like I said, it's really much easier if you can certify to that advanced level. And just so you know, if you're looking at this and you're a new volunteer, you do not have to pass basic to start certifying to advanced immediately. So the advanced exam covers everything that's in basic with a few additional modules to learn and a few different income sources to learn about. And that's the big difference between the two. Like I said, it's about an hour's worth of difference in training time, and it makes life so much easier if you can go ahead and certify to that advanced level. And when I'm talking about learning how to do taxes, the certification covers the federal taxes only. So we do have an additional training for the state of Michigan taxes as well as what we call local taxes or city taxes. So there are some locations in the state of Michigan, some cities, that have a tax on their city residents, and we'll go through and show you how to do those tax returns as well. Once you have the federal tax return done, all the information from the federal return directly goes into the state return, and the state return is actually very easy to do. So this is not meant to intimidate anyone. I know I talked a lot about a lot of information, and it seems kind of daunting, especially if this is your first year certifying, but I do want to encourage you that this is not that overwhelming when you kind of jump in and you can break it down piece by piece. So one of the things that we did with our volunteer program here in West Michigan is we wanted to make sure that you could kind of tackle small pieces of this. That's why we have these videos broke out into segments for you so that you can do one video at a time, whether it's once every couple days or one a week. If you start volunteering now in the fall, you'll go ahead and be completely ready by the end of January, the beginning of February when we start doing tax returns for the public. So there's lots and lots of resources for you. There's the Link Learn certification page. There's our Goodwill page with all of our volunteer resource information on it that I highly encourage you to go to. But there's also some online as well as hard print resource material. One of the biggest things that you'll learn about in the training that's up and coming is that intake and interview sheet. And that's required of everyone that we assist. If you come in to our tax site, every single individual that is having their taxes prepared has to fill out what's called a Form 13614C. And that's basically our intake and interview form. And what it does is it really helps go through all of the situation of the taxpayer so the tax preparer can go ahead and prepare the return accurately. Another huge resource guide is the Volunteer Resource Guide, that publication 4012. I know I have mentioned it a few other times as well, but that publication is huge. I highly encourage you to go ahead and look through the guide itself, kind of get acquainted with it and how it's set up. And it's just a resource guide that you're going to have to go to often. We want to make sure that you have all the material you need. A lot of the information you'll end up absorbing, but it's always good to have something to go to in case you're not certain about something. Or if you have questions, it's really great for that. It has a lot of really good decision trees, and they're really great. So I highly encourage you to make sure that you're utilizing that resource guide. At each tax site, there's also a federal income tax booklet, publication 17. What I usually refer to this as is it's kind of like a dictionary for all things tax related. So I highly encourage you to take a look at that publication 17 while you're doing your volunteer certification. There's also a volunteer training guide, so that is very similar to all these modules as well as all of the different modules that the IRS has up at their site that you can read through. It's just another copy of all of that information consolidated. So that will mostly be online. We will have a few hard copies at our tax sites, but the IRS is getting away from printing a lot of material, so you'll have it available for you if you want it. It's a great resource, but it's not something that you typically have to refer to every day as you're preparing the taxes. When you're doing your training, the volunteer training guide, the publication 4491 and publication 4491W are really good to refer to. The 4491W is a workbook, so it gives you extra problems and exercises for you to go through while you're doing your certification. There's what we call a practice lab online. So it's a format that's set up just like the software that we use, only it's not live, so you're not able to actually submit any of the returns that you're preparing. But it gets you really used to utilizing the software and applying the concepts that you're learning in these trainings to what you can do online and in the actual preparation itself. And do know, I keep talking about a certification. There is a test and retest book. It's called the Publication 6744. It's a really great resource guide, and do know that this is an open book, open note test and certification. So it's really not as intimidating as you might think. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate and make sure that you understand and know the different resources that are available to you if you're thinking about volunteering. There's linklearncertification.com. We also do all of our volunteer sign up. So if you're interested in volunteering with our program, you can go online and sign up for your shift. So you don't have to contact our volunteer coordinator, Carl, every day and say, hey, I'll be in this day, I'll be in that day. We really prefer if you go ahead and sign up online, and then that way program coordinators and site coordinators know where more volunteers are needed, so that way if we need to call anyone in, we can. And it also allows you as a volunteer to see where we're going to need assistance. You can see how many people are signed up and how many people are needed at the tax site, and then that way if you're able to come in, you just can sign up for that shift, and it's that easy. Also, as for you as a volunteer, it's a really great resource because it allows some flexibility in that you don't have to necessarily volunteer for the same exact shift every time, or so that we know when you're on vacation if you're just not going to be available. So make sure you're utilizing that resource. It's a really great one in helping our program stay managed. As I indicated, there's hard copies of most of the resource guides, so if there's something specific you're looking for, Carl can help you with that. Everything is online, and you can go ahead and either Google it, you can go on the Link Learn certification page, you can go to the IRS website. There's a lot of different places where you can find this information. So know that there's hard copies of a lot of things. If there's something that you need printed and you don't have a printer, and you're going to be volunteering with our program, we can go ahead and take a look at helping you out with that as well. So how a lot of people will say, well, where do I get started and how do I best prepare myself to volunteer? So do know that, like I said, there is a lot of information coming at you. So know that there's a lot of different learning styles that we are trying to accommodate and get you the information in whatever way is going to work best for you. We can do this either in class. You can do the online Link and Learn certification software tools. So that's just basically like a PowerPoint with no moderation. So you won't hear me go through any of this information. Or you can use the website with all of these different training modules on it. Like I said, we try to consolidate as well as emphasize what's going to be important for you to learn to do taxes, as well as what you're going to see at the tax site often. It could also be a combination of all of these things. So whatever way you learn best, just so long as you're getting the training that you need. Learning the tax software is a whole nother piece of this as well. So our tax software can be extremely helpful in doing the tax return. We just switched over to a new software form. It's called TaxSlayer. And in TaxSlayer, it'll go through and just ask you questions and show you how to do the tax return itself. So there's a training format, as I mentioned. So sometimes you'll want to do some practice returns. You can go into the software under the training format and actually work within the software, so that way you're learning the software and applying the tax law that you're learning in the online or in-person training. So after you have had some experience with the tax law training as well as the tax software, there is the certification that needs to be completed. That can be done through the linklearncertification.com website. You can go on and there's a whole list of the items that you need to certify under just based on what you want to do. So if you indicate in the software that you'd like to volunteer and that you'd like to be a tax preparer, it'll go through and it'll show you that you need to take that volunteer standards of conduct training. It'll show you that you need to take that interview training as well as the advanced exam or basic exam, although like I said, we are encouraging you to take that advanced exam as well. And then after you pass your certification, we just encourage everyone to practice, practice, practice. We want to make sure you have as many practice returns under your belt so you can get as familiar with the software as possible. If you do a lot of practice and when you sit down with a person, it's really not too intimidating to prepare their return. At the end of January, we usually have everything up and running. Our first day of taxes that we do is always February 1st. So at the end of January, we're being hugely encouraging about you doing your tax return or the tax return of those around you to make sure that you can help the people that are in your lives as well. So another reason, so to talk about the certification a little bit, because sometimes people get a little bit nervous about that piece. So the volunteer certification, you're provided what's called a test and a retest. And basically, if you take both of those portions, they're based on the same tax situations. And there's a test that'll ask you one set of questions, and there's a retest that'll ask another set. A lot of the times the questions are very similar, they're just worded different. But there's the test and the retest, and when you go online to take your certification exam, the certification is actually just a mix of test and retest questions. So you basically have the test in front of you before the certification test in front of you before you even get started. That certification needs to be accessed on the linklearncertification.com website. That's through the IRS. But know again that it's open it's open book. You only need an 80% or higher to pass. And you can take the certification. You can attempt it 2 times. And then after that, you'll have to go to the volunteer coordinator and see what other options there are. But when you're taking the test, you can stop it and then start and pick up where you left off later. So it's probably the most accommodating certification type exam that I've ever taken. We haven't had anybody just completely fail. If you have questions on a topic, let us know. We want to help you. Carl Lewis, our volunteer program coordinator, he's always our tax program coordinator. Carl is always available for our volunteers, and we're always very supportive to get you the help that you need to get you what you need to make sure that this isn't a very daunting task for you. We also make sure that people understand that the certification is also in place to cover you. As a volunteer, you're not personally liable for anything that is prepared. So like I said, with our review process, we don't have that many mistakes that are made, but at the end of the tax return, you also go through the tax return with the client, and they have to sign off on this in order for us to e-file it on their behalf. So they're taking responsibility for what was prepared for them. If there is a mistake that's made and it does get submitted, us as program coordinators here at Goodwill will go ahead and take a look at that with the taxpayer, see if an amendment needs to be made. If it does, then we'll go ahead and help them through that process as well. So like I said, with the certification, it's basically covering yourself so that you're not personally liable for anything that's prepared. I know that can be a concern of people, especially when they're looking at doing looking at people's income and looking at something that's so personal to so many different people. So before I end this little introduction section, I do want to just give you a few tips on completing that certification. One is do not try to memorize everything because that's nearly impossible. There's a lot of really great resource information, and at first it's going to take you a really long time to work through a tax situation, but it will get quicker and easier, I promise. Just don't try to memorize everything. That resource material is available for you to use, and a lot of it will come to you and you'll get used to doing as you do several different types and doing more and more different returns. get accustomed to that TaxSlayer software. It's pretty user friendly and, like I said, easy software to use. So just make sure that you get used to it and you know where to find everything through the software. The big things I would have to identify throughout this tax training that people can get kind of tripped up over, and that they'll want to refer to in that in the volunteer resource information, is the earned income tax credit, the child tax credit, what dependency means, as well as head of household. Get really familiar with that publication 4012 that I keep talking about, the volunteer resource guide. Understanding that and where to find the information in there can really help you in understanding how to ask questions and where information is. It is okay to ask questions as well. Carl's always available to answer your question if you're having a problem on a practice return, or if you're at a tax site and see Carl, he'll be available, but know how to use that resource information. Again, though, we do want you asking questions. We want to make sure that we're answering those for you and that you have a really good understanding of what you're doing so that you're comfortable. Also, we'd rather answer your question than have you spend 3 hours trying to look something up. So if you've been trying to look something up for some time and it's just not making any sense, go ahead and let one of us know. We're happy to work through it with you. We'd rather spend, 3 minutes going through something with you than you spend 3 hours and getting frustrated. So again, I said go ahead to make sure you know to contact us if there's anything you need. We're talking about any resource information. If you are just still a little bit unclear how to get started, these modules are a great way to go. But if there's any follow-up questions you have, Carl Lewis can be contacted, and he's a program coordinator for VITA Services for West Michigan. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.